I have had a really rough day, and it's not even noon yet. Go figure. Coming back from an errand I had to run in town, which was the reason, in part, I was miserable. The other reason was because I got into it with my husband this morning because I was already crotchety about this errand I had to run. I had to go to the dentist, and I hate the dentist. And so I swung by the grocery store to get a Bavarian cream-filled donut. Now, there's nothing wrong with a Bavarian cream-filled donut between the parameters of hunger and satisfaction. I rarely have a Bavarian cream-filled donut anymore because it's like not at the very tip top of my list, but today it was at the top of my list. I really wanted a Bavarian cream-filled donut, and I really didn't care if I wasn't at a complete 0. Okay, like let's call it a 1. Okay, I get to the cabinet where they keep the donuts, and you know what? They didn't have any Bavarian cream-filled donuts. So I decided to buy 2 other donuts instead. And I get in the car, I thought, I'm going to sit down at my table at home and have this the way I should have it, mindful and focused and in a godly manner. I got home, and I thought, well, I don't really need the donut. I can wait. And I thought, but why wait? I've got the donut. Let's eat the donut, at least one of them. Well, I sat down with the donuts, and I'm thinking, I'm going to be making a video about counting the cost. And yet here I am eating this donut. I gave half of it to the dog because it wasn't that good anyway. And then I started in on the apple fritter, which was a teeny tiny apple fritter. What's up with that? Okay, so I started in on the apple fritter, and I thought, hold everything. Is this really what I want? If I'm going to blow through my boundary, what will be the fruit of that? Counting the cost, though, I realized my heart is not going to be in the right place to share with you about counting the cost. So I counted the cost. What the greatest cost to blowing through my boundaries, and I urge you to think of it this way too, is you count the cost of blowing through your boundaries or honoring your boundaries. It's not so much about the food or the weight. The very first thing I'd like to encourage you to do is settle this issue. Do you believe God has called you to eat only when you're hungry and to stop eating when you're physically satisfied? If you are not absolutely convinced that this is a boundary that God is calling you to, then it will be really easy to justify eating anyway. It will be really easy to convince yourself that you need to eat even when you're not hungry, and to keep eating even though you might be physically satisfied. So I want to urge you to get this settled today. Has God called you to a boundary of eating between 0 and 5? And if you're convinced that the answer is yes, write it down and date it and sign it. Just, I am convinced that God is calling me to this. When you get that settled, it'll make all the difference in the world. Then moving forward, when you evaluate, do I really want to blow through my boundary? You'll have a touchstone. You'll have a point in time where you know this boundary was given to me by God. I need to really weigh the cost of blowing through it. Is this something that God is calling me to do for some reason? Or do I want to uphold it? It makes a difference. Really, it does. One of the tools that I have been crowing about from the get-go is Barb Raveling's book, I Deserve a Donut. I think you can download it for your Kindle or Kindle app for like $2.99 on Amazon. She's also got an iTunes app that you can get, I think, for $2.99. So either way, this tool is great for helping me count the cost. Number 1 in the I'll Start Tomorrow eating is, what are your boundaries? Okay, because I've challenged you to get that settled. Hopefully, that's a question that my boundaries are 0 to 5 eating. I eat when I'm hungry. I stop when I'm not. End of discussion. There it is. Question number 2 in the I'll Start Tomorrow eating. Is there ever a good or an easy time to start following your boundaries? I believe that this is a question that can help us so much in evaluating what is God calling me to do here. The truth is, there is never going to be a fun time to follow my boundaries. Usually, I have boundaries because I need them, because without them, I won't live that way. I'll live in a way that's very counterproductive to godliness. It's not going to be easy. So by definition, as I look at any situation where I'm tempted to break my boundary, I shouldn't wait to follow my boundary until it feels like fun or easy, because that's just not likely to happen. Okay, so question 3 then, what sacrifices will you have to make to lose weight and or maintain your healthy weight? Well, there you go, counting the cost. I'm going to have to eat less food than I want to. If I want to release weight or maintain a healthy weight, I'm going to have to, for the rest of my life, be willing to eat less than I prefer to eat. The sacrifice that we have to make is food, eating. Sometimes we're going to have to eat less food than we want to. Will you have to make those sacrifices no matter when you make the commitment to follow your boundaries? I could put off starting this program or restarting, or today I could say, forget it, I'm not going to eat 0 to 5. Well, then what am I doing? Putting it off till tomorrow? Is it ever going to get any easier? No, it's not. Count the cost, weigh it out. Does it make sense to wait to follow my boundaries? Well, it's not going to get any easier. In fact, I can train myself for godliness by pushing through now, by following my boundaries now. If I respond instead to my desire and I eat breaking my boundaries, I'm training myself for ungodliness. That's a cost. What would I gain by starting to follow my boundaries today? Count the cost. I may have to give up more food, but I will be fostering greater intimacy with God. I will be investing in healthier attitude towards food, towards eating, towards my body, and I might even maintain my weight or my healthy weight, or I might release weight. What do you think will happen if you don't start today? It's not going to get any easier. I'll have a food fest. What? Is that what I'm looking forward to today by not following my boundaries? You see, her questions really, it's like, makes me think, well, duh, no brainer, right? Would it be better to start following your boundaries today, or is there a good reason to wait? Count the cost. Is there really a good reason to wait? What kind of damage could I do to my heart, to my walk with God, to my body by waiting? I don't like the cost of waiting. Are you the type of person who can go without boundaries in this area of your life and still lose or maintain your weight? Why or why not? Well, if I was the kind of person that could go without boundaries in this area of my life, I would never have been as overweight as I was, with such a negative, dysfunctional relationship with food, eating, and my body. I clearly need structure. Boundaries provide a godly structure for me. So yeah, boundaries are good for me. They've fallen for me in pleasant places. Is there anything you need to accept? I need to accept that this is going to be easier at some times than others. And I need to accept that in order to be the size that's healthy for me, it doesn't take very much food. I have to count the cost. What will your life and body look like a couple of months down the road if you develop the habit of consistently following your boundaries? No matter what, time is going to pass. And you could say, it's going to take so long to lose all this weight. Well, what do you have better to do with this time? You know, you're still 6 months down the road, you'll still be 6 months down the road. Would you rather be even 10 pounds, if that, or a size? Would you like to feel your pants loosening in 6 months or tightening or the same? You know, whether you look at it in terms of numbers, I mean, what do you want to see? 6 months down the road is going to happen. And you'll be at the other end of these 6 months or 2 months, and you'll say, wow, I could have been, what? Honoring my boundaries. I could have seen the fruit in my life spiritually, emotionally, and physically. So why not start now? What do you want to see 2 months, 6 months, a year down the road? Start now. Count the cost. And it isn't, you're going to have to give up food. You're going to have to be willing to find other ways of having fun. Recreational eating has got to be set aside. And when you're with friends who think that the only way to have fun together or to bond together is by eating, you'll either want to find new friends or find new alternatives you can introduce to that group. There's a cost involved. But when you think of all you have to gain, is it worth following your boundaries today? It just might be. There's so much we can gain. This intimacy with God, I have such a great dependence on him because of this issue in my life. In fact, I've gotten to a point where I can actually thank him for this issue because I know without it, I wouldn't have the intimacy that I have with him. And I love that intimacy with him. Philippians chapter 3, verse 7 and following, Paul is speaking. Whatever was to my profit, I now consider loss for the sake of Christ. What is more, I consider everything a loss compared to the surpassing greatness of knowing Christ Jesus my Lord, for whose sake I have lost all things. I consider them rubbish, that I may gain Christ and be found in him, not having a righteousness of my own that comes from the law, but that which is through faith in Christ. Everything else that we may have loved and enjoyed is nothing compared to that fellowship, that intimacy that we can enjoy with Christ. Could it be that he's allowed this challenge in your life because he wants to draw you closer to himself? He can be your very great reward. And yes, there could be physical rewards as well, but there is emotional and spiritual rewards. As you count the cost and look at what you have to give up today, look at those wonderful rewards too. Some of them will be immediate. The wait might not be immediate. I'll be honest with you. The wait might not be immediate. You might experience intimacy with God, dependency on him, sensitivity to his spirit, an awareness of him walking with you throughout the day as you check in at meal times when you're hungry. Would you really trade that